Hello, story seekers. I'm Nico.
I'm Ben, and you're listening to The Tiny Bookcase.
Our guest for this episode hails from Essex and is a best-selling author of young adult thrillers.
Her can-do attitude and a positive tweet brought her into the spotlight, and with her, her novels, Powerless and Abandoned. We would like to warmly welcome Vicky Ball.
Hello, Vicky.
Hi.
Wow, it was quite a thing that happened. What was it like realizing that something you had tweeted had gone viral?
It was completely crazy, actually. Yeah, it was just totally unbelievable. I think, first of all, I just couldn't really believe that it was happening, and yeah, then it was kind of a whirlwind afterwards because I kept getting all these journalists contacting me. It was just very strange.
I bet it was.
How-
Have you gotten sort of bored of talking about it yet, or is it still a really happy thing for you?
No, it's a really positive thing to talk about, I think. But yeah, it's definitely calmed down a bit now.
How do you know it's happened? Do you get the slow rumblings and it happens, or is it just one minute? It's like, oh no, this is real. This is going down.
What's that? You mean like the viral tweet?
Yeah, I've never gone viral. Does it come up slow, or does it just jump you?
Well, I posted it on I think Tuesday night. Well,
Yeah.
Tuesday afternoon, and then it wasn't till about the Thursday morning it kind of went viral. And it was when I woke up on Thursday morning that I noticed that I had quite a few more kind of likes and comments than I normally would. And then it was sort of over the course of that day, I was kept checking it. I was at work, but I was sort of checking it in between doing things, and it was just going up and up. And I'm thinking, and I think it was at something like 14 million views in the morning, but then by the evening it was like 25 million views, and I just thought, this is crazy. What's happening?
It sounds amazing. So we should probably clue people in that haven't seen it, although I think 25 million people have. So I'd be surprised if our audience hadn't. But essentially, you went to a book. Am I right in thinking that you went to a book fair and you posted about how you'd managed to sell two of your books at this fair?
Yes, yeah,
Is that right? Yeah. And then there
yeah,
was
that's
just
correct.
this huge outpouring of interest and support, and literally huge, 25 million
Yeah,
views. What is
yeah,
bit
I know,
mind-boggling.
it's crazy.
I mean, well done. I think it's really cool. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and you've been obviously talking to us, and we connected through that because I saw your story on the BBC and
Oh, okay.
and followed it up with you from that. But
Mm.
and I just thought, oh, I'd love to talk to this person about storytelling and how it got you here, because it's an example of how telling stories can really, I think, change someone's life. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like your life has changed?
Um, I think it's definitely made me probably more confident about writing, I suppose, because lots of people have bought it, but then they've also said they really enjoyed, books and stuff, and
Yeah.
so, and I think it's sort of made me more determined to kind of get it out there even more, and so yeah, it's getting there.
Wonderful. All right. Well, all the best to you. But I think it's
Thank
probably
you.
time for us to tell our stories for the week. So who's going
That
first this week, Nico? Is that me? Am I going?
it is.
Okay.
It's going to be you first this time, Ben. We have all written to the same prompt, which is cabin. So Ben, take me to the woods.
Cabin. I am built on ground snatched from the wild, a being made from dead things and forced into life. I don't remember the trees that were here before. Perhaps they are my timbers now. Or am I made of foreign stuff? It doesn't matter much. Wood without sap pumping through it will decay given time. I have had many seasons of life, and my rot goes deep into my foundations. Left unoccupied, whole sections of me have lost their use, and gradually my guts have been exposed. That is for the best, and I do not begrudge the forest for finding ways to creep inside me. It occurs to me that I would like to be wild too. I have a new owner, the first for 133 seasons. His name is Vladimir, and he calls me Dacha. He fondly claims to remember the men who made me: Joseph, Nikita, Mikhail. He makes them promises as though they are still here to care whether I am rebuilt or not. I try to tell him he is alone in his wish, that I am happy to die, that I am not necessary to him as I was to them. But he ignores my creaking timbers and groaning frame. Instead, he brings fresh lumber by the truckload. I am grateful for that anonymous wood, as I would not like to see my neighbours hewn down to heal me. It would grieve me to watch their stumps rot. Vladimir starts by using old tools to wage war on my rot. It does not work. The job is too large. When he returns, Vladimir brings a riot of noise. His new tools bite deeper, faster. The keening roar of their power gentles the forest, and I feel hollow when the birds scatter from my rafters. Some days he leaves me be to hunt, and I hear the report of his gun terrorizing the rhythms of the wild instead. The game he brings back is more than one man can eat, and he joints them in front of me before putting portioned carcasses in a new humming icebox. That humming box in my kitchen bothers me incessantly. The rumbling generator, which runs both it and his tools, reeks sharply of gasoline. I have sturdy floors and even walls again, but they do not help me think. Room by room, he remakes me. With each new timber he adds, he blocks out more of the wild. The noise, the constant noise. I cannot think. Even when he sleeps, which is not often, the rumble and hum he brought with him does not allow me to find peace. I decide to make it quiet again. Nails pop loose at my flex, and fresh carpentry is rendered shoddy as I shift. He is not happy, and breaks the noisy tools as though it were a fault in them rather than his designs. He will not stop, and instead brings louder tools and more wood to rebuild me. I wander about the far-off place where he is felling the trees for my repairs. I feel ashamed to have been grateful for their anonymity. Perhaps it is a beautiful place, like my forest, and was once wild too, with its own story of the seasons. Perhaps it is where my original wood was grown. Now his axe falls on those trees, and their corpses are dragged to my reluctant last stand. I worry that I should yield, should allow myself to be mastered by him before he fells the whole world to remake me. I decide that if he is not stopped here, he will think always that he conquered the wild to remake me. I do not want to be his proof, so I twist and buck until even my sound wood cannot bear the tension, and my ancient fibres pull apart. His efforts fail once more, and soon, I hope, it will be winter again. Winter cold will drive him back to his cities, surely. Vladimir is no longer talking to Joseph, Nikita, or Mikhail. Perhaps he fears their judgment if they were to start replying. His silence scares me. He pours grey sludge into my foundations to still me, but I wriggle feebly as it dries so that it fails to hold me. Seeing the freedom I have retained, he curses me. I believe I have finally won when he removes the humming box and rumbling generator. There is peace again inside me. Vladimir fetches a large metal container. I can hear liquid being splashed around, can feel it soaking into my frayed fibres, can smell the gasoline. Finished with me, he lights a cigar and studies my face. His stare is cold, as though I am curled up at his feet, spent of all use. I watch the glow of the cigar and wonder if he will truly burn the whole forest just because he cannot remake me. He wouldn't do it, would he?
That's a really cool take, man. I did not expect personification of a cabin going in.
Yeah,
That was
no, I was
really,
thinking the same. I was like, wow.
really fun. The
Mm,
almost like kind of those little wrigglings of freedom and
mm,
there's something because people give character to trees a lot, but for that wood to still retain identity in life and
mm.
that the idea of settling houses being an act of rebellion, that's I've not seen it before and I like it a lot.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah, I just think it's amazing the way you personified it. You know, totally made us feel as though we were the cabin. Can you imagine that? And I like the whole fantasy sort of setting as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm finding it fascinating that you both have got fantasy from it, because for me this is in the real world, and I've actually
Yeah.
tried to do it as like a metaphor for Putin remaking the Soviet Union. So the idea is
Okay.
obviously that this abandoned, rundown cabin that's lost rooms and stuff is the Union. He's sort of trying to remake it by force, and it's not really working. And creating so it was a bit of both, I think. But I like the idea of like an Ent rebelling against Putin. I think that's a cool thing. Is there anything
Yeah.
you change?
Is there anything I'd change? I think possibly. Obviously, you're doing your analogous resurrection of the Soviet Union thing, but I don't know if, because his name is Vladimir, it becomes so clear that it's that it loses that again. And it felt like you just picked the most Russian name you could find, which is I don't even know if there's a way around that, but that's definitely my brain did say Putin early on, because that name is now synonymous with him. We're talking about him all the time, but it never then put him into the story. It was just like a word association game, you know?
Yeah, I get you.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't really think of Putin actually, so I didn't really get the whole Soviet Union thing, but maybe that's just me.
I think that's okay. It's supposed to stand on its own as a
Yeah.
story anyway, and then that's just
Yeah.
another layer that I've tried to weave through it.
I think it's
Yeah,
nice, especially as that though. Because there's a great deal of sort of sadness to it, and that becomes an impending horror. And now knowing what it is a representation of, that, like, how far will he actually go just to get his way, even if it isn't the way he's set out for, if it's just destruction. I think there's something so elegant about how that's structured that it does stand on its own really well. And I think you could transpose it into it doesn't, it could be a block of flats that were built in the 70s, and I think it would still have that same sense. I think that is done really well. The actual emotional anchoring of the story is spot on.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it sort of made me think of Pinocchio in a way, and his master, kind of the whole he's being owned by someone, and almost like perhaps he wants to be real and not just a cabin, but I don't know.
I did think at one point that the cabin was gonna like get up and kick the guy's ass.
Or like Baba
That
Yaga
would be
style,
cool.
like got big
Yeah.
chicken legs under it.
Put a generator in me, would you?
Yeah, I love the kind of descriptions and the language and the, like some really good phrases like phrase fibers and the kind of, the alliteration. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, well, thank you, guy. That was that was some really nice feedback. I'll have a think about it. I think, especially your point, Nico, about potentially it's so obvious that it then obscures it.
It becomes oblique, yeah.
I think I need to find a way to address that. I think on a subsequent edit. But aside from that, I enjoyed telling it. So thank you for listening to it. And
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it was really good.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Vicky. Would you be up for telling us your story, your cabin story?
Yes, I would. Okay. It's a little bit rough and ready, but anyway. The cabin was the first place he came to. Wet, cold, and shivering, he pushed the door tentatively, feeling the rough wood beneath his fingers. The door opened easily, creaking as it did so. Janos took 1 foot into the cabin, glancing behind him for the last time. But all he could see was darkness. He could only hope he hadn't been followed. He imagined eyes of wolves shining in the trees, waiting to pounce on him when he least expected it. Then he heard the thing that scared him the most, his father's voice. Janos, where are you? Quickly he ran into the cabin, shutting the door firmly. He could barely see anything in the dim light. but he felt his way round the room, feeling for anything he could use to put against the door and stop intruders, well, one in particular. Janos, his father's voice called. He sounded angrier now, more desperate. Janos's hands found a table. He carefully pushed it towards the door. It might not work, but it would have to do. He wedged it right up against the door he had just come through. Then he crept towards the back of the cabin, feeling that every creaking floorboard would give him away. He thought about how this would end. Him getting dragged out of the cabin, not getting found, or fighting back, knocking his father to the ground. This was his favourite scenario, one he often imagined, but it was also the least likely one to happen. He found a tiny room off the main part of the cabin. He tiptoed slowly towards the far corner and sat down, hugging his knees to him. He held his breath, putting his hands over his cold ears. Despite it being dark, he closed his eyes. He waited until he couldn't hear his father's voice anymore, until the calling of his name grew fainter. He had no plan for what he would do next. Alone in the woods with no one to help him, he shivered, hoping, praying that his mother would rescue him, but he knew that would never happen. She'd never protected him before. Why would she start now? Finally, he pulled his trouser leg down where it had risen up. He took a deep breath as he stood up and clutched the wooden wall to steady himself. Something touched his hand. He pulled it back quickly. Something moving. He tried to look closer at the wall to see what it was. It felt big, shiny, slimy, but not quite an insect, maybe something bigger. Then he heard a clicking noise come from the direction of where his hand had touched it. It was a horrifying noise, one that made the hair on his arms stand on end. He stepped backwards and glanced back towards the door. Did he risk going back out where he could be mauled to death by animals, or stay here with whatever that was on the wall? The clicking sound got louder and he swore it moved closer. He decided he'd rather risk it out there. He ran out of the room so fast he slipped on the floor by the main door. Panicking, he quickly jumped up, fearing that the clicking creature would run after him, attack him. In his mind, it had already grown 10 feet taller and was crawling towards him, intent on devouring him. He opened the door and ran as fast as his little legs would carry him, trying to avoid the branches and holes in the uneven ground. The cold hit him, but he couldn't think about that. He just needed to get to safety. He kept running, trying to put as much distance as he could between him and the cabin. He ran until his tired legs started to slow down. He could see a glimmer of light, maybe a house, somewhere he could find refuge in. He couldn't quite make it out what the light was, but it definitely wasn't a wolf. He ran towards the light until he realized too late what it was. Janos, there you are, said his father, in a voice that gave away no anger. Where have you been? Janos stood still. Did he run? But his father walked towards him and grabbed his arm, clutching it tightly. We need to get you home. He knew there was no escape this time.
Whoa, that was just like primal fear after primal fear, wasn't it? I loved it.
Definitely write thrillers.
Kind of creepy.
Being chased through the woods, the other wolves in the trees. Oh no, it's his father. It's that's worse. Yeah, I really really liked it. I loved this idea of him imagining what will happen next, like this sort of this ideation of what could happen, and I think that's quite it's quite nice to be shown that the main character has quite an active imagination, especially as that sets you up for dealing with this thing in the dark. Like it's potentially, I mean, at least from my initial reading, that is potentially not even there. It might be just something that he's conjured, or the character has conjured. Sorry. Yeah, the line "not quite an insect" really got me. Something
I
about
wrote
that
down,
line.
what the fuck is it? That's in my notes. What the fuck is it?
Yep. Maybe I don't even know myself, but
No. I think there's definitely the sense that it's just fear. I think that's the idea that I got from it. That it's an impossible creature made from a child's fear.
I think there's a really interesting thing in there about you know what he's afraid the bug-ish thing is going to do to him. He's afraid it will eat him. He's afraid that the wolves will attack him, but we don't know what he's scared his dad is going to do to him, and that makes the dad so much scarier. That we don't know why he's so desperate to hide from his father, and much like Janos conjuring the worst things that could happen to him, it gives us as the reader an opportunity to do the same, to put whatever our worst thing the dad could do in that spot. It's like, yeah, horrible. Yeah.
Definitely. I had one note that I wrote down, which was when he's leaving the cabin again, does he need to remove the thing that he braced the door with in the first instance?
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Yeah, plot hole. Yep.
That kind of stuff happens to me all the time. So when I spot one, it's like a red flag for me. But yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I felt
Oh, thank you.
there was like especially earlier on, it felt like you were building pace quite well, which is to say, sorry, that there was a section where you talked about like the rough wood beneath his fingers, and it's just a small sensory description, quite relatively simple one, but it does lock you in into what's concrete and what's not, and that turns out to be the crux of the story, I think. So I like to,
Oh, brilliant.
yeah.
Oh, thank you.
What would you, if you were to take it further? What would you do? Do you have like a?
Well, it's kind of based on a character that I've sort of written about before. And so, I mean, this scene is completely new, but it's a character where he's, been sort of physically abused by his father and stuff, and then in the sort of stories I've written about him, he's sort of grown up, and then he sort of has flashbacks. But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to sort of get it out there and get it finished, really. But
I think I have some more questions, but they will actually wait until the interview section, I think, because I think
okay.
they tie into some other things. But thank you for reading for us, and thank you for writing that. That was really
It's
interesting.
okay.
Thank you.
No, it was really fun to write. Actually, it was good to think about
It's
something
such
in a different way.
good way to do it, I think, isn't it? Just to blast out
Yeah.
1,000 words about something. It can be really, really cathartic. Nico, third and final story. Are you ready?
Oh, as I'll ever be.
Let's go.
With some care, the Lord rolled his sheaf of parchment. Within it were the words he had time to spare, though he knew in truth that their worth may be naught once that time came. With a hand once made steady by a night's training, now shaking once again with age, he tipped wax upon its edge, and firmly pressed his signet ring into the molten heat. The symbol left there, a kestrel clutching in its talons a flighted arrow shaft, seemed to eye him with menace. He had carried that emblem for 4 decades, painted first by his own hand upon a shield of simple boards. His legend, for such stories ought to be referred to in this manner, was well known by the small folk, though perhaps no longer well believed. He had caught from the air an arrow meant to find the prince's eye. Leaping from a horse's back, he had, for just a moment, taken flight. It was too improbable, most folk now reckon, to have been the truth. The purple lines that decorated his left palm still were all the truth he needed. Indeed, the memory had long since faded into the miasmic fog of 100 battles fought. With some effort he slid back his chair of oak and swept the sealed document with him. His back was bowed, in some places with age, others with effort. Years of ill-fitted plate and nights spent sleeping in a saddle had weathered him. He had changed in shape from spruce to willow, and in this contorted form he took his cane and began the agonizing totter through his keep. He thought to call out to his son, "Dignity be damned! Who cares if the serving staff heard his voice, quavering with age as he searched for the last of his boys?" But no, he would not have his son's last memory of him be of a cripple crying out in the night. He might just as well be drenched in piss. He found the boy, as he had expected, not abed. He was at his window, looking down at the source of the Lord's fear. "You should be asleep, child." There was a scolding edge to the words, but the Lord did not intend it. Boys were by their nature rebellious. Was that not the cause of such a nighttime disturbance? The boy started at his voice, so rapt was his attention. He turned his face, still smooth and fresh, the first signs of beard yet to appear upon its meagre years. "Father, there are fires outside, many of them." "Yes, boy, they are torches. The men without must see their way for the work they are to do." The boy looked puzzled. "But it is time for folk to be abed, as you say, father. What work could they be at?" The Lord shook his head, but wore a smile. "Never you mind, lad. Come here. I must have a promise from you." The Lord allowed himself a seat upon the bed, and was blessed by the relief of it. How time had ravaged him. Even a short walk through his home could wound him so. "Sit, son." The boy did as he was commanded, and sat beside his father. "You look odd, father. Are you unwell?" The Lord shook his head, albeit untruthfully. "No, boy. Do you know where I lived when I was of an age with you?" Wide-eyed, the boy shook his head, surprised by the late-night lesson. "When I was a boy, there was no arrow, no bird. There was only me, my father, my mother. We lived the life of woodcutters. I knew the workings of a saw long afore a sword. The home we had was made of wood, cut by my father's father, your great-grandsire. It was a simple home for simple folk. Then I became a squire and a knight and a lord. But I've ever kept that home of logs." "Why are you telling me this, father?" The old lord sighed. "You are to go there. Now." His son looked startled. He glanced around the room as though expecting a jester to jump forth and deliver a punchline. "No, father, but I do not know the way. Is it far? How will you walk such a way? You cannot ride a horse any more."
"That's enough, boy."
His words cut a blow across the questions, stunning the child into silence.
"I will not be coming with you, but I will not send you alone. Sir Geraint will take you."
Geraint was a good man, trustworthy and capable. Once he had been a squire to the Lord. Now the years had made him tall and broad. He was a reminder always of the time that had passed. He was the man the Lord had been once, before all had begun its inexorable crumble. "And you will join us later, I suppose?" The boy let the question hang, then. As though he had realised his duty, he began to push articles of clothing into a bag. He did so with the careless scrunching of a child who does not know the value of the fabric he holds.
"Nothing with our heraldry, boy."
The boy dropped again a fine tunic he'd been packing, and instead took up some plain trews. "Am I hiding then, father?" The boy was more intelligent than the Lord had given him credit for.
"Yes."
The Lord nodded deep.
"You will have coin enough. I've given Geraint an amount to cover a lifetime, should you use it wisely."
The child held a moment, then looked again out of his window. "The torches are closer."
"Then expedite your packing."
The Lord turned the parchment in his hand and swallowed hard.
"Pack this also. It is for your eyes, not Geraint's, not anyone else's, when you were a man of age."
"How will I know I'm of age, father?"
"When your beard is full, or you kill a man to save your life, whichever comes first."
The boy hesitated, then silently took the parchment before shoving it alongside his clothes. "Why can you not come, father?" The Lord sighed again, and raised his tired head to meet his son's gaze.
"Because they will hunt me, boy. Not you, though. You are young enough that they will not recall your face once time takes it.
Tears welled in the boy's eyes.
Why then? Why will they hunt you? You're a good man, father, aren't you?
That depends who it is measuring men's goodliness.
A silence fell then, as the boy tried to comprehend the meaning.
I am a known friend to the king. I saved his life when he was a prince.
So you'll be protected.
Things are not so simple, boy. Some people bear no love for the king.
That he was among that count, the Lord did not share.
They are treasonous then. I've learned that word.
Then forget that you have learned it. You're a woodsman now, and Gerand is your noble father. Now go, Eric, and live. This is my wish.
The boy was stunned a moment by the rare use of his name. He wiped tears from his eyes and made towards the door.
Gerand is in the kitchens. Find him there.
As his hand touched the door's iron handle, the boy spoke, barely a whisper. I love you, father.
I am glad someone yet does. I love you, Eric.
The finality of the words was clear, and the door clicked shut behind the lad. With an effort, the Lord stood once more and crossed to the window. The torches now were in his courtyard. Revolution was an ugly thing. Not near so ugly as the nature of the king, though. How he wished he'd let that arrow land and spared the world all this pain. He would have lived happy as a woodsman, thought. He hoped one day his letter would explain to Eric the nature of all these things. If he had told him tonight, he would forget. With an effort he believed impossible, the Lord pulled himself onto the stone ledge and gazed at the gathering mob. He would not have rope or flame. None could command his doom save him. He allowed his screaming muscles to give up and tumbled into open sky. He had, for just a moment, taken flight.
That was really good. That was really, really good. Like, that was very tightly, well woven stuff. I like that a lot.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, no, it's so atmospheric. I mean, you could literally picture it, and it's really good.
Yeah.
So for full on mic truthfulness, I had written something else, which was weirdly also very Russian centric. So it would have aligned very strangely with Ben's, but the I fell out of love with it even as I was finishing writing it, and I'd got distracted while writing with another story, this story, and yeah, I think if that happens to anyone when you're writing something, if you can't stop thinking about a different story while you're trying to write one, stop writing that one and write the one that you can't stop thinking about.
Yeah, you just got to go with your heart, really.
Yeah. I mean, I will, however, say to delete the first one wholesale is an extreme reaction in that situation. I think putting stuff in a drawer is always a good recourse. I think because there's typically something that can be salvaged from the story. I think
My drawers are full of batteries and takeaway menus, Ben.
Oh, that's fair news. I think George Martin lawyers are going to be calling you about the use of small folk in that story. But
possibly, yeah.
That one drifted it towards A Song of Ice and Fire for me just a touch, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. There was one really, really nice bit of description. Oh, there was loads of good description, but there was one bit that is going to stick with me for a while, and it was this idea of the shape of the old man going from spruce to willow.
Yeah.
That was really well done. Really well done, especially because we then realised later on that that's like a lexical field for that character because he was raised as a woodsman. So it's that worked particularly well, I think. And there was lots of that. You were laying groundwork, you were sowing seeds, and then you were reaping them really well. And that happened a few times about typically about the main character, but also just generally for the story. And that one felt good. Felt good, yeah.
I love the voices, the way you read it as well. I mean, it was just amazing. Like, you got a good use of the old man voice and the boy voice, and just very professionally read.
A difficult switch between the two. They're trying to turn off the gruffness. I found myself nearly swallowing my tongue at one point. I think.
No, I thought it was really good. It really, made it really good, and I love the way I love the way you just sort of like your descriptions of the man. I mean, you can just so I had this total vision in my head of him, and it's really good.
I'll share with our listeners and both of you that my grandfather actually this week went into a care home permanently, and it's meant I was thinking quite a lot about age and how it changes the people you know, because I do remember really clearly looking up at him, and he was a very capable man, very good at DIY and making things and gardening, and now he's not only shorter than me, but he's becoming smaller and he's less capable, and there's something so strange about what time does to people. It is fascinating that we're upright, and that costs us dearly in the end, doesn't it? The way we live.
It does.
Yeah.
Oh well, I'm sorry to hear about that. That's always a tough thing that happens, I think. Yeah. But I think you've written a story here that works very well to evoke that because most people are going to have that shared experience or something like it. So I think this works very well as in that regard. Like it conjured, this old man looked like my granddad because of the way that you set it up. To me, and I'm sure that'll be the case for anybody that hears it as well. So that was really good. I did like there were a couple of bits where I thought it was potentially a little bit overwritten for you. Yeah. Because you're normally so sharp with your construction and stuff. But there was one that was like a redundancy that was you said at one point that there was a miasmic fug.
Yes.
I think that's a redundancy because I think they both mean roughly the same thing.
They probably do.
Because they both mean like a little like a exuding environment, kind of a bit stuffy. Yeah. And then I thought the description of the heraldry, a kestrel clutching a flighted arrow shaft. I think if it's an arrow, then it's got fletchings, which means it's. I don't know. There was something about flighted arrow shaft when arrow.
Yeah, I think I trying to say that it was in flight, as in it had caught it in midair. But I think I've not really. I've not described that properly.
Flighted means to add fletchings to an arrow, like to add feathers to make it fly. So I think, I don't know how to get that across, but that just sort of that stuck out for me a little bit. That it was 3 words for one, and it didn't. It didn't change it very much.
Maybe it's an arrow shaft in flight or something.
Potentially. Yeah.
Or just clutching an arrow. That might be enough.
Clutching an arrow would be how I'd write it, but I don't know if that's me being too simplistic. I get that it's a part. It turns out to be a large part of the story that he stopped the death of the king and was promoted to lordship for it, but then ultimately regrets it because the king's awful and the revolution's come for him. And it does matter that is what happened, and I can see why you tried to get it all in the start. But I think you can do kestrel catching an arrow a bit, just to stop that from tripping people up. There was some wonderful stuff in there. The agonizing totter, voice quavering with age. Didn't want to be, this internal monologue of this guy saying that he didn't want the last memory to be a cripple crying out in the night.
That's good.
Yeah, some real sort of Mortal Coil stuff there,
And the ending was kind of a bit like took your breath away a bit. It was like, okay.
Yeah, but very well sewn.
That's great. Yeah,
there can be a trend with writing these very short bits of fiction that you want to make the endings punch as hard as possible because it's 800 to 1500 words, and I've noticed it in me as well because we've written over 100 of these now. There is a propensity for the characters to die.
Yes.
because then it feels like the story's been completed because a life has come to an end.
Ending, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes I feel like it can be a bit cheap, and I try and like veer myself away from going down that angle with every story. But this one really merited it, and you set it up really well, and yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
That's really nice feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's good. I really enjoyed it as well. Yes.
Oh, fantastic! Well, 3 stories, 3 very different stories.
Yeah.
The sort of primal fear in the middle, the Lord
Mhm.
shoved himself out of a window, and a talking cabin. It that was quite. Were there any? Sometimes there's a link between all 3, but I don't think there was in this one. Was there? Was there something that?
There was an importance of fire in the first and the third, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there was a. I mean, obviously they all had a cabin in. It's interesting that we all went
Yeah.
for wooden cabin as opposed to like an aircraft cabin or.
Yes.
Oh gosh, yeah, I wouldn't even thought of that.
Yeah. My one of my original ideas was to do something about like a pirate ship with the captain's cabin and things like that. So yeah.
Okay. I think mine was first thought was forest cabin.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the strongest thing. Like that, there
Mm.
is something to the idea of going past the first thought, isn't there? But then sometimes there really isn't. Like it just
Mm.
you've got a strong concept. Why not just go for it? I like it.
And I think for me, like the whole cabin in the forest is such a thriller thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
so
Have
I
you
think
seen? There's a horror comedy film called Cabin in the Woods. Have you seen that?
yeah, I think I have. Yeah, I think I saw it a while ago.
I really
Yeah,
I found that to be quite funny because
I
it's a bit of
really
a send up
like it,
of
yeah.
those kind of tropes.
yeah,
Yeah, very good.
yeah.
Very good. Oh, is there anything you would change about Nico's story, Vicky?
No, I mean, I really liked all of it. So I think it's hard to say what I've changed really, because
Absolutely. Sometimes
yeah,
there's no need to it. It's always interesting to get people's insight into how they would do things differently, I think, and then
yeah,
people can
I
choose to use the feedback or disregard it.
I did get
yeah,
to
no,
lean on hundreds of thousands of words that Germ's already written for me to do my world building, so that was made some of it a bit easier.
I don't know. I don't think you did that. I think it was just the small folk is specifically a Germ thing.
So it's a little bit behind the screen for us, isn't it? But I think so. Ben and I do a lot of tabletop roleplay in the Game of Thrones universe. So I think
okay.
it's a term we use so often that I've
Mm.
forgotten it was a Germ thing until you pointed it out.
I mean,
Right, yeah,
maybe someone will tell me that it's not a Germ thing; that it actually was a real thing. But I'm fairly sure it's a Game of Thrones thing.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
yeah, but other than that, I don't think you lent on him too heavily at all. Like this idea of like revolution and this
Yeah.
idea of
Mm.
like rope and fire. Like it felt like there was an angle to that revolution that felt distinctly French.
Mm.
No, what do you mean?
They were just slightly too early for the invention of the guillotine. That was the only problem. No, wonderful. 3 stories. Well, Vicky, it's been lovely telling stories with you. Do you mind telling our audience about your books and where they can buy them and where they can follow you online to hear more about your work?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so I've got 2 books published at the moment. They are both young adult thrillers, but have been enjoyed by people of all ages. In fact, probably most of the readers are over 18, I would say. So they're called Powerless and Abandoned, and they are on Amazon. Yep, on Amazon. And I'm on most social medias now, but I post most on X, and there's links to my books on my profile page, and I'm on there as Vicky Ball 3, and most of the other social media channels I'm on there as Vicky Ball Author. I've recently signed up to Threads and Blue Sky as well, but I'm sort of still finding my way with those ones. But
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for telling some stories with us, and I think everyone should join us next week for the interview section where we're going to pick your brains a bit and have a bit of a chat about your work.
Yeah, Vicky
Yep.
Ball 1 and Vicky Ball 2, you better watch your ass. We're coming for you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful.
You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For rich ginger tones on their scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne, and for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?